Hello and welcome to a new video here on my channel here at Comaik. In this video I want to show you how I initialized and set up my Reolink surveillance cameras. I want to show you the individual menu items and show you which settings I made. There were a lot of questions about configuring the Reolink cameras in my two other videos. My two other videos can be found linked in the corner above. In the first video I showed you how I installed the Reolink NVR network video recorder, the RLN36, installed the hard drive and added the cameras. In the second video you then saw how I replaced my old Hikvision cameras on the house facade with new Reolink IP cameras and how I set up my PoE network. And now in the third part it's all about the correct camera settings. If you want to know more, just take a look below. The video in the description. There you'll find not only the product links but also links to the manufacturers and the manuals. And if you like, go ahead and give me a like now, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. That's what keeps my YouTube channel going. And at this point I've talked enough. Let's get started with the setup on the client. By the way, you can download it for free. The link is in the video description. I've connected the NVR in the server rack and I'm back. You're looking at the Reolink client app on my Windows PC. In the overview, I can see the new camera at the bottom as a single camera, which uses the SD card for recording, and I see the camera at the top under the NVR with the recordings on the hard drive. The settings I'm about to make will affect both video recordings. They will change the settings on the NVR and the settings directly on the camera. The only difference is that for when playing back the footage, the SD card is accessed in one case and the hard drive in the NVR in the other, which is built into the device. Using the gear icon, I can adjust the settings for the camera. I'll quickly and concisely go through each item on the side with you. Basically, these are settings that you'll need to fine-tune over time. In display, I can rotate the image and flip it upside down. I can mirror the image, meaning I can swap the left and right sides. The name of the camera is already clearly and prominently displayed at the bottom right of the screen, making it easily visible for your reference. And the date is currently at the top center. I'll move the date to the right. I don't need the Reolink watermark, so I'll disable it. The anti-flicker settings are set for Europe, 50 Hz. That's the frequency of our power grid. This setting should be used when filming lights and lamps. These can flicker and flutter. In the USA, the power grid runs at a different frequency. There, you would need to select 60 Hz. The day and night switching operates automatically. Once it gets dark enough, the camera automatically switches on the infrared LEDs and changes to black and white view. The details of this can be further refined in another menu. The privacy mask blocks out the area that is not allowed to be filmed. In Germany, I am only allowed I need to film my own property. Currently, I can still clearly see parts of the neighboring properties, which is not ideal. To effectively mask this area, I will precisely draw a rectangular shape. I can then easily move and carefully adjust its position and size with the mouse. Afterwards, I save the setting. In the surveillance camera image, you can see how the area is automatically blacked out. I can't see anything there anymore, and this area is also not recorded. Under advanced settings, you can adjust the brightness, contrast and saturation. And the image sharpness can be individually adjusted. You can change these settings, but you don't have to. Generally, the default works very well. Only in extremely dark areas or in very bright areas should you make adjustments here. The switching threshold between black and white and color can be changed here. In my opinion, this setting is also very good. I've never had any issues with it. During the day, the video image should be in color, be recorded and played back. At night, the camera should record in black and white using the infrared illumination. The stream setting indicates the resolution at which the video is displayed. There's the clear stream with high resolution. It's best to view this on a computer or NVR monitor within the network. This camera supports 8 megapixels with a maximum bitrate of 8192 kbps and 25 frames per second. So the image is almost completely smooth. If you watch the video on your smartphone using mobile data and need to keep an eye on your data usage, you can also use the smooth stream. This one has a significantly lower resolution and therefore requires much less data. In the alarm settings, you determine how an alarm should be triggered. I want the camera to no longer delete the video recording when an alarm is triggered, but instead to save it permanently. The recording will be saved until the hard drive or SD card is full. Only then may the recording be overwritten. This way, I have the option to retrieve the footage, even weeks or months later, and see what triggered the alarm. The pet detection is still in a beta phase at the moment, even though it has been available on all my Reolink cameras for quite some time. I can reliably filter the recordings to check when animals are detected. By now I also know that in addition to foxes, martens, cats and raccoons, I also have a badger. The motion detection is further enhanced by intelligent motion detection. Basically, the motion detection should run from 0 to 0 o'clock. Here I can individually set the sensitivity for when the camera should respond to movement. If I set the slider to the maximum of 50, every tiny movement is detected, an alarm is triggered, and the video is saved. The downside of this solution, however, is that, for example, a small insect flying in front of the camera or rain and snowflakes can also trigger the alarm, so the number of false alarms increases significantly. If I set the threshold too low, however, no alarm will be triggered anymore, and that only happens if a very large object moves through the frame. A setting of 40 is good for areas that are not very busy. If you have a section in the camera image where there are a lot of animals, many trees, and a lot of movement, the value should be adjusted individually. You'll need to experiment with this. The intelligent detection goes a step further and differentiates the sensitivity for detecting people, vehicles, and animals. The area in the camera image is located where, as a rule, no other person is present. That's why I definitely want to trigger an alarm as soon as a person is detected. Detection of cars is not important here. There are only the two vehicles that I use myself. Other vehicles shouldn't be driving through here. Still, I set it to the maximum just in case someone gets the idea to drive through my garden. The detection of pets and wild animals I also set to 100. I definitely want to see the animals that wander through here, because it's really exciting to see who passes through the property at night. The alarm delay postpones the alarm when an object is detected and shouldn't be recorded immediately. To be honest, I'm not entirely sure what this function is actually for. I can't really assess that. I always start video recording immediately as soon as a movement is detected. With the object dimension function, I can also make size comparisons. Now the image is distorted, now it's fine again. For example, I can specify how tall a person must be at minimum. If the object is smaller than this rectangle, then it's not considered a person. This makes sense, for example, if the camera covers different angles or records distances and should only recognize people in the front area with a certain size. The motion zone is the last point. In the motion zone, I define where a movement is allowed to occur that will trigger an alarm. There are also areas with movements that should not trigger an alarm. For example, a wind turbine or a flag. If the thuja trees move because of the wind, no alarm should be triggered. To do this, I can simply mask out the area and no alarm will be triggered there. With the trees, it's actually not that important. The Reolink cameras work very reliably. Moving trees rarely trigger an alarm for me anymore, but here is my WPC terrace and I don't want an alarm to go off every time someone steps onto the terrace. So I will exclude this particular area from any form of surveillance. The audio and light section in particular is relatively quick to process and manage. To explain, the camera has a speaker and a microphone. Of course, I want to hear and also record the audio. The switch in the evening and morning between the color view and the black and white view with infrared lighting should happen automatically. The next menu item is surveillance. Under recording, I set all the relevant data that are important for the recording. Here, there is the first significant difference between the settings for the SD card storage and the data storage on the NVR itself. The overwrite menu item activates the crucial function that when the storage capacity is completely full, the oldest video recordings are automatically and seamlessly overwritten, ensuring continuous recording without manual intervention. When accessing the camera, this applies to the SD card, and for the NVR, it applies to the hard drive. With both options, the recordings should start overwriting from the beginning once the hard drive is full. Depending on the size of the hard drive or memory card, This could allow for example, a week, 2 months or half a year of recordings. Pre-recording means that the camera not only saves the crucial images from the very moment motion is initially detected, but it also captures the preceding moments, providing a more complete and comprehensive visual record of the event. But also the 10 seconds before the alarm. I can only enable or disable this setting or disable it. I would have liked to be able to set the exact amount of time that should be additionally saved before the alarm is triggered. These recordings are really very interesting and definitely relevant for me. For example, when I watch a recording of the badger that comes over from the neighbor's yard again, I usually miss the first 1 to 2 meters of the badger's walk in the video. I would really like to have a bit more pre-recording, shifting the recording sets, the additional recording duration after the last alarm trigger. In my opinion, the minimum should be 30 seconds. As long as there is a continuous alarm trigger in the image, this value always applies from the last detected movement. So a crowd of people moving in the frame for 2 hours would be recorded for 2 hours and 30 seconds. The schedule determines when the camera should record. Recording can be set via the timer, so at the activated time it will always record. However, I can also control the recording via the alarm trigger or motion detection. I can also combine both options. With motion detection, I can additionally differentiate whether the recording is separated by person detection, vehicle detection or pet detection. I find it useful to control the recordings with the alarm trigger 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and to activate all additional markers for motion detection. I will enter the email address later. Here I can set up where a motion alarm can be reported, for example by email. I have already saved these centrally in the NVR settings. In the FTP settings, I can specify additional storage locations for video recordings. If I am not using an NVR or an SD card, I can, for example, set up an external hard drive, a computer, a NAS or a cloud service here. I can enter the access data in this menu. Then the images and videos would be saved directly to the external storage device. Push notifications are the last point. If this function is activated, I will automatically receive a push notification on my phone as soon as a movement is detected. In the network menu, I first get an overview of which network my camera is connected to and which IP address has been assigned. If I scroll the image down a bit, I can see the advanced settings here. There may well be a need for adjustments here. If I want to access the camera from outside via the internet, the corresponding ports on your router need to be opened. You can also do this automatically using the UPnP function, but you can also open the ports manually. The default NTP settings are fine. With this setting, the time is automatically synchronized with the internet. These settings are already very good. The automatic synchronization takes place every 1140 minutes. This means that the clock runs relatively accurately. In the storage menu, the camera's SD card is displayed with an error message. When I click on the card, a small menu opens. I see the message that the SD card is installed but not yet formatted. I'll do that now. I confirm the warning about data loss when formatting. After formatting, the camera restarts automatically. It takes a little while before I have access again and can switch to the settings. Under storage, I now see that out of my 256 GB, only 239 GB are actually usable. 280 MB are already in use. The last menu item is the system settings. Under user management, I can create new users, delete, block or change passwords. Under date and time, there is the option to switch the time format from 24-hour to 12-hour. I can also adjust the date format to my preferences as needed. I let the time synchronize via the internet. Here I can also set the automatic switch from daylight saving time to standard time. Since my time is synchronized automatically, this setting doesn't make much sense, but it doesn't hurt either. Under the menu item maintenance, it's all about taking care of the camera. The auto upgrade is set up automatically. The camera independently checks if there is a new firmware version and installs it by itself. This way, the camera software is always up to date. I can also manually check for a firmware update. Currently, however, there is no new firmware version. If there is an update that does not install automatically, I can of course also install it manually. The automatic restart ensures that the camera restarts automatically at a specific time. This makes sense, for example, if the camera stops responding properly after running for a long time. Restarting resets the camera, but the settings are not lost in the process. A restart takes about 20 to 30 seconds. The default setting is Sunday at 2 NAS AM. But as you know from my video on installing the NVR, this setting should definitely be adjusted. Every Reolink camera has the same factory setting for the restart. So an uninvited guest knows that your camera will be out of operation for 20 to 30 seconds on Sunday at 2 hours AM. The restore menu item resets the camera to its factory settings. But I can also do that directly on the camera. With restart, the camera is restarted. So you see, setting up the camera isn't that difficult. The connection to the network isn't rocket science either, as long as the network cables are already laid. Before I finish up with the settings, I'll take a quick look at the NVR. I open the camera menu from the NVR. Here I can already see the settings that I just made through the camera menu. However, there are differences in the monitor menu. Recording activation, overwriting and pre-recording are also available here. But with the delay recording setting, which determines the recording duration after the last motion, you can set up to 10 minutes here. On the camera, I had set the middle value of 30 seconds. The pack duration indicates how long a single video file can be before the recording is split and a new file is created. 30 minutes is the default value. I can extend the length to 60 minutes, that is 1 hour if I want. The timer and alarm settings can also be configured here. However, I also have the option to apply my settings directly to all cameras that are connected to the NVR. So you see, with just a few clicks and a little bit of time, you can configure each camera individually just the way you need it. Or you can use the function of the NVR and transfer the settings centrally to all cameras at once. I'm not going to introduce the playback page for alarm recordings in this video. I think it's self-explanatory. Using the filter, you can select in the timeline what you want to search for, whether it's all motion alarms, vehicle detection, human detection, or the badger with animal detection. With every firmware and every software upgrade, there are also new features. For example, the time-lapse mode, which is available for many camera models. This allows for automatic time-lapse recordings. That's another reason to regularly perform firmware updates. Here's a tip from me. The automatic search for new upgrades doesn't always work. That's why I set up a routine via my Home Assistant, which notifies me about firmware updates. From there, I can also install the update automatically. Or I download the new firmware directly from the website and install it manually. I hope my video helped you get a better understanding of how to set up Reolink cameras. If you have any questions or want to exchange ideas with me, just write in the comments section under the video. I'll reply to you as quickly as I can. If you're interested in the surveillance system and want to recreate it yourselves, I would be absolutely delighted if you used my product links. You can also find them below the video in the description. The NVR, the different cameras, everything I use, I've linked for you there. You'll get the same price as I do, and my channel receives a small commission. That's how I fund my projects. Thank you very much for supporting me. Thank you also for giving this video a like at the latest by now. Subscribe to my channel so you won't miss any new videos, and I hope you'll join me again for the next video. Until then, I'll say goodbye. See you soon.